I always trusted her. Implicitly, blindly, maybe even foolishly. After 7 years of marriage, trust becomes a habit. You stop questioning the little things, the late meetings, the unread messages, the occasional distant gaze. You assume life is just busy. That love, once solidified by vows and shared moments, is unbreakable. But love, as I came to learn, can be very good at hiding cracks until it shatters all at once. It was a quiet Sunday morning when it happened. She was in the shower, humming a tune I didn't recognize, while I sat at the kitchen table sipping bitter coffee and scrolling through news on my phone. Her phone, the one she guarded like a diary, was lying on the counter, face down, and then it vibrated. One message, then two, then three in rapid succession. I glanced at it, casually at first, then with unease. The preview banners slid down. I didn't have to open them to see enough. Last night was incredible. Can't stop thinking about you. Your lips still taste like red wine. Miss you already. When's the next time your husband will be away? My fingers turned cold around the coffee mug. My heartbeat slowed, almost methodical. Everything in the room became painfully clear. The ticking clock, the smell of her shampoo wafting from the bathroom, the distant hum of the washing machine. I didn't touch the phone. I didn't rush to confront her. Something colder and sharper settled in me. Not rage, not heartbreak. Something quieter. A need to know everything. I put the phone back where it was and stood up when she emerged from the bathroom, wrapped in her towel. Smiling as if nothing had happened, I smiled back. My hands didn't tremble. My voice didn't falter. You want pancakes? I asked. God, yes, she said, pecking my cheek. You're the best. I was already planning everything. For the next week, I observed. I acted normal. I kissed her goodbye in the mornings, texted her during lunch breaks, asked about her day, held her when she returned home. I watched her unlock her phone and shield the screen from my view. I heard her fake laughter when she called her sister. I memorized her routines. When she showered, when she slept, when she left the phone unattended. She thought I was clueless. She didn't know I was learning. On Wednesday night, I told her I had a business trip coming up. 2 days, Thursday to Friday. She smiled almost too eagerly and said, I'll miss you. Be safe. That was all I needed to hear. Thursday evening, I didn't go anywhere. I parked 3 blocks away from our apartment and watched from a rented car. At 8:17 p.m., a man arrived. Slim build, expensive jacket, confident stride. She opened the door, pulled him like a magnet, and turned off the lights. I sat there for a while. No tears, no shaking, just clarity. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a performance, a carefully orchestrated lie. And I wasn't going to stop it. Not yet. The next morning, I returned home early. I made sure the elevator was slow. I made noise with my keys. Gave her time. When I walked in, she was already dressed, smiling with messy hair and coffee in hand. You're home early, she said. I missed you, I replied. I kissed her. She kissed me back. She didn't know that I already had the security footage from the hallway emailed to myself. She didn't know I'd recorded the text previews from her phone. She didn't know I was setting the stage for something bigger. You see, I wasn't going to scream. I was going to show the world who she really was. The hardest part wasn't knowing she cheated. It was pretending I didn't know. Every morning, I kissed her like always. Every night, I held her as she slept. I smiled, nodded, listened to her plans, laughed at her jokes, all while her betrayal sat quietly between us, like a ghost at the dinner table. But now that the mask had slipped, I started noticing everything. The nervous flicker in her eyes when she typed messages. The sudden bathroom breaks during dinner. The change in perfume. The silence when I entered a room too quickly. She had no idea how far ahead I already was. The next step was simple: gather evidence. Not just for myself, for the finale I was building. I installed a discreet security camera in the living room. Just one, hidden in a vent cover. She never noticed. Why would she? I was still the naive husband in her eyes. I cloned her phone while she was in the shower. It took less than 10 minutes. I had full access to her messages, photos, call logs. I miss you, she sent. Every photo she forwarded. Every voice note she whispered to him when she thought I wasn't around. I started a private folder, the archive, evidence, chronologically organized. And I waited. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a series she loved, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it, turned the screen down, and excused herself to the kitchen. I waited 10 seconds, then picked up the phone. My heart beat steady as a drum. The message was from him. Next week. Same hotel, room 704. Can't wait to taste you again. Disgust mixed with satisfaction. They were repeating themselves. Sloppy. She returned a few minutes later, holding 2 glasses of wine, her smile wide and easy. What did I miss? She asked, curling beside me. Nothing important, I said, handing her back the phone. Just a filler scene. She never noticed me delete the preview. That night, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling while she breathed softly beside me. My mind raced through every detail, every move. This wasn't just about getting even. It wasn't about shouting or making her cry. It was about control. I wasn't going to destroy her with rage. I was going to destroy her with truth. The anniversary was coming up. 7 years. She had already started planning a romantic evening. Little did she know I was planning something too, something unforgettable. I booked a restaurant. Fancy, one we hadn't been to in years. I contacted a friend who did video editing professionally, gave him all the clips, the security footage, the text message screenshots, audio of her phone calls, captured through the cloned app, all packaged into a 5-minute montage. Make it tasteful, I told him. No blood, no anger, just the truth. He didn't ask questions. He didn't need to. On the morning of our anniversary, she was radiant, dressed in a black satin dress, her hair curled just enough to look effortless. She looked at me like nothing was wrong, like the last year hadn't been a lie. You look beautiful, I told her. You're sweet, she replied, kissing my cheek. On the drive to the restaurant, she hummed the radio. I held the steering wheel with calm hands, watching the city lights blur past. She had no idea that the entire night was orchestrated. Every seat, every word, every second. We walked into the restaurant hand in hand. The waiter, prepped in advance, seated us near the center. The small stage in front of us had a screen. Is this for some kind of show? She asked, glancing at it. I smiled. You could say that. She giggled and took a sip of wine. The waiter brought the first course. Then the second. Everything timed. As the dessert arrived, the lights dimmed. The screen flickered to life. At first, she looked confused, curious. Then she saw the first message on screen. Then the video. Then her own voice whispering, I can't stop thinking about you. Her fork slipped. She stared at the screen, frozen, as clip after clip played. Her face paled, her breath caught in her throat. People in the restaurant turned their heads, whispered, gasped. She looked at me, horrified. I sipped my wine slowly. Happy anniversary, darling. The screen went dark. The restaurant fell into a stunned hush. Her eyes were still locked on the now blank space in front of us. I could see her chest rising and falling faster, her hands trembling just slightly as she clutched the napkin on her lap like it might keep her grounded. James, she whispered. What was that? I didn't answer right away. I wanted to let the silence press in, heavy, suffocating. I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, now exposed under the soft ambient lighting and eyes of strangers. That, I said, calmly placing my wine glass on the table, was a gift, a small taste of the truth, wrapped in your own words and actions. She blinked at me, lips parted, speechless. Around us, the whispers turned to murmurs. Waiters tried to look away, but their curiosity was magnetic. Some diners watched in stunned silence. Others pulled out phones, pretending to text. I can explain, she started, her voice cracking. Of course you can, I said. You've been explaining things I never asked about for months now. You're quite good at it. She reached across the table. Please, Can we go somewhere private? Just you and me. I didn't flinch. You mean like a hotel room? Room 704, maybe? Her hand froze midair. Then, slowly, she pulled it back to her lap like it had been burned. Outside the restaurant, she tried to keep her composure. I let her lead the way, stumbling in her heels, try and make sense of a world that was no longer under her control. We didn't speak until we reached the car. Inside, she turned to me. "You went through my phone," she accused, her tone low and shaken. "No," I corrected. "I went through your lies. Your phone was just a drawer they were kept in." Tears formed in her eyes, and for a second, I almost believed they were real. "James, I made a mistake." I smiled, cold, unforgiving. "No, you made many mistakes. Carefully, repeatedly, and you enjoyed them. That man, he wasn't a mistake. He was a choice. Over and over." She began to cry. And still, I didn't feel sorry for her. Back home, she paced the living room like a caged animal. I sat on the couch, watching her unravel, arms folded. "Who have you told?" she finally asked, desperation creeping into her voice. "Only the people who needed to know," I said, keeping my tone measured. "My lawyer, for starters." "Wait, are you divorcing me?" she gasped. I raised an eyebrow. "You think this can be salvaged?" She looked at me, eyes wide, stunned by the simplicity of my response. "You don't understand, James. I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened." "No," I said sharply. "Car accidents just happen. You scheduled this. You planned. You snuck around. You lied. And worst of all, you smiled through it." She collapsed into the armchair, wiping her face. "Please don't ruin my life." I stood up. "You already did that. You just didn't realize you'd be in the wreckage, too." That night, I slept in the guest room. She tried knocking twice. I didn't answer. I wanted her to sit in the silence, the one she built with her betrayal. In the dark, I stared at the ceiling, playing the next steps in my mind like a chess match. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. She had fooled me, humiliated me, but the best part? She still had no idea how far I was willing to go. I wasn't done. The next day, I left for work early. Or at least, that's what she thought. In truth, I drove straight to a local gallery. The owner, a friend of mine, had agreed to something unique, an anonymous showcase of photographs and screenshots. A visual truth, as he called it. Private viewing only, for one night. I told him I didn't need money. I just needed a time slot, a few close friends and family, maybe a journalist. No names, no faces. Just raw, undeniable evidence of betrayal. He agreed, said it would be haunting. Perfect. When I got home that evening, she was quiet. The house was clean. A warm dinner waited on the table. Her makeup was subtle, dress modest, like she was trying to rewind time. "I made your favorite," she said softly. "I'm not hungry," I replied. She sat down, clutching her fork, trying to smile. "Can we at least talk?" "We already did," I said. "Now it's time for you to listen." She swallowed hard. "I'm moving forward," I continued. "I've spoken with my lawyer. I'll keep the house. You'll get enough to land on your feet. Fair terms. But there's something else." Her eyes searched mine. "I've organized an event," I said. "Next Friday. A small showing. Art, in a way. Your art." She frowned, confused. "You always loved attention," I said. "I thought you might enjoy a proper audience." Her lips parted. "What are you talking about?" "You'll see," I said. The week leading up to the event, and so will everyone else. Too quiet. She tiptoed around the house like a ghost, cooking dinners she knew I wouldn't eat, cleaning rooms I never entered, trying to glue together something that had long since shattered. I didn't stop her. I let her try. It was cruel, maybe, but I had spent months drowning in confusion, doubt, and pain. Now it was her turn. Each night, she asked if we could talk. Each night, I declined. And when she cried, I didn't look away, but I didn't comfort her either, because comfort was for the innocent. Friday came faster than expected. The small gallery space had been transformed. Dim lights, Black walls, silent speakers humming with ambient tension. On the white panels that lined the room hung blown-up screenshots of her messages, her late-night rendezvous, the affectionate lies, the betrayals woven between emojis and promises. Some were printed raw, unedited. Others were framed with commentary. Timestamps, locations, hotel receipts matched with exact calendar dates from our life together. But the centerpiece, the one that drew every pair of eyes, was a candid photograph, taken by me. She stood in a hotel hallway, lips on another man's mouth, her wedding ring catching the light like a final joke. I arrived early. My name was nowhere on the invite, just a title. The words you never meant me to see. By 7, people started arriving, close friends, co-workers, even her sister. No one said anything out loud at first. They just wandered, eyes wide, mouths slightly open, some shaking their heads in disbelief. She didn't know. Not yet. At 8:17 p.m., I got the message. I'm heading out now. Be home later tonight. Love you. I almost laughed. The audacity, the desperation in pretending we still existed. I sent her the address. No explanation. No warning. Just that. She arrived at 8:46. I watched her step into gallery wearing a simple black coat, her hair pulled back neatly, as if she were coming to mourn something. And, in a way, she was... At first, she didn't understand what she was seeing. She glanced at the walls with a puzzled frown, moved toward the first few panels. Then, slowly, realization painted itself across her face like a spreading storm. Her hand flew to her mouth. She stumbled back. People turned to watch. Her eyes met mine across the room, a silent plea behind them. I didn't move. She started whispering something, to herself, maybe, or to me. I didn't listen. She made it halfway through the exhibit before she cracked. I want this taken down, she hissed, spinning toward the gallery owner. He blinked. You signed the waiver, remember? The one you didn't read. What? She turned pale. I never. You did. Last year. Remember that abstract series I asked to include you in? This was a continuation. The clause covers derived works. I had arranged that. Of course. Months ago. She looked at me again. Why are you doing this to me? I'm not doing anything to you. I said quietly. I'm just showing them what you did. That night, after the gallery emptied and the murmurs faded into the cold, I stood alone by the centerpiece photo. It felt strange being seen this way, not as a betrayed husband or the broken man, but as the one who finally, fully knew. She came back. Of course she did. Found me still staring at the wall. I never meant for it to go this far, she said behind me. Neither did I. I loved you. I turned slowly. Then why did you love him too? She had no answer. Do you feel humiliated? I asked. She didn't reply. Good, I said. That's the beginning of honesty. Later that night, at home, she began packing. I didn't stop her. She looked at me once, as if expecting one last fight, one last plea. There was nothing left to say. When the door closed behind her, the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was clean. The next morning, the silence was different. It wasn't the kind that comes after a fight, where both parties stew in separate corners, waiting for someone to break first. This was a final. This was the silence of a house that no longer held secrets, only echoes. Her closet was half empty, the toothbrush gone. The scent of her perfume lingered faintly on the pillows, a final mocking trace of everything I had let myself believe in. And still, for a brief moment, I wondered if I had gone too far. Not because she didn't deserve it. She did. But because revenge, even when justified, never returns what you lost. It just burns everything that remains. I avoided my phone most of the day, letting the messages pile up. What the hell was that last night? Is it real? How long did you know? She came crying to Mom's. She's a mess. Good. Let her explain herself now. Let her feel what it's like to live under a microscope, where every question stabs, every silence screams, and every kindness feels like a trick. By evening, I receive a message from her sister, Rachel. I'm not saying she didn't deserve some of it, but damn, that was brutal. Are you okay? No, I wasn't. But for the first time in months, I wasn't confused either. And that felt like something. Over the next few days, the waves kept coming. Our mutual friend began to choose sides, some cautiously, some with explosive drama. A few unfollowed me, clearly uncomfortable with the public display. Others reached out, telling me they always had a weird feeling about her. I didn't care. Not really. This wasn't about approval or pity. This was about reclaiming my own narrative, my truth. Still, at night, I sometimes sat at the edge of the bed and stared into the space she used to fill. It's strange how absence can feel heavier than presence. One evening, I got a knock on the door. It was Ryan, one of our oldest friends. Someone I hadn't expected to see. He held 2 beers and that hesitant look people wear when they're afraid they're walking into a minefield. I don't know what to say, man, he started. Then don't. Just sit. We drank mostly in silence. Eventually, he said, "You know, a part of me kept hoping you'd been hacked. That was a weird art piece, performance or something." I looked at him, but the worst part was realizing I believed it, all of it, from the start. "Then why didn't you say anything?" He sighed. "Because I didn't want it to be true." The world didn't stop turning, of course. The sun kept rising. Rent still had to be paid. Dishes still piled up. But something inside me had shifted. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about me, about who I had become in the shadows of someone else's lies, and about what came next. 2 weeks later, I walked past the gallery again. The exhibit was gone now, replaced by a new collection, abstract landscapes in soft pastels. Peaceful, forgettable. The owner saw me and waved me inside. She came back the next day. "You know," he said. I raised an eyebrow. Said she wanted to buy the photo. I laughed dryly. "Which one?" "You know which one." I shook my head. "Did you sell it?" "No. Didn't feel right." Silence. Then he added, "She asked if you'd taken it because you knew then, before everything." I thought about it. Had I? Maybe some part of me had. Maybe I took the photo not as proof, but as protection. A quiet attempt to hold on to something before it slipped completely away. "Tell her," I said finally. It started with a knock. That's some pictures not the hesitant kind, bought, not polite or casual. That was the kind that demanded attention. I deleted the last of her messages from my phone. The kind that didn't wait for permission. Not out of spite. I opened the door because I was tired of reading words that were never meant for me. His tone was dry, his words rehearsed. "Mr. Carter, you've been served." A small envelope was pressed into my hand, and before I could ask anything, he was gone, just like that. I stared down at the paper, my name printed coldly at the top. Cease and desist. From her lawyer. Apparently, publicly exposing someone, even with truth, was a legal minefield. The claim was defamation, character damage, emotional distress. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because the hypocrisy was surreal. She lies. She cheats. She manipulates. And now I'm the one under attack? I called my friend Lena, a lawyer who'd always told me to keep receipts, just in case. I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment, then said, "Send me everything, every message, every recording, every email." "I already have it in a folder," I replied. She exhaled. Then, "Don't worry. She's bluffing. But this is war." Online, things got uglier too. Some people who had once liked and commented on the reveal video now began to question my motives. Why go public? Why humiliate her like that? You could have handled it privately. They had no idea what it was like to live under lies for months. No idea what it felt like to sleep beside betrayal every night and smile through it. I wanted to respond, to defend myself, but I didn't, because I'd already said what needed to be said. On video, in silence, in the images, in the truth. A few days later, Rachel, her sister, called again. "She's unraveling," she said. "She's paranoid, accusing everyone of conspiring with you. Mom won't talk to her. Dad's furious. She's barely sleeping." I paused. I didn't want this to destroy her, but it did, because she built herself on lies. And now there's nothing underneath. Her voice was soft, almost regretful. Then, to my surprise, she added, "You know, you weren't the first she hurt, but you were the first to fight back." At night, I began to dream about the photo again, the one from the gallery. But now in the dream, it kept changing. The shadows would move, the glass would crack, and her face would fade in behind mine like a ghost. Sometimes I woke up gasping. Other times, I just lie still, unsure if I felt victorious or just empty. There was one moment, though, that pierced everything. I was walking to the store, hoodie up, head down, when I heard someone call my name. I turned, half expecting anger. But it was a woman, maybe mid-30s, kind eyes. She looked nervous. "You're him, right? From the video?" I nodded slowly. "I just wanted to say thank you." That caught me off guard. She continued, "I saw myself in what you said. I stayed with someone like that for 4 years, always questioning myself, always doubting my sanity. Your video made me leave." I blinked. She smiled a small, sad smile and added, "Truth hurts, but silence kills." And then she walked away. When I got home, I sat at my desk and opened the folder. Evidence. Every message. Every photo. Every painful thing I had once clung to. I selected them all and deleted them, not because they weren't important, but because I didn't need them anymore. The war might not be over. She might try again. Another letter. Another whisper campaign. Another mask. But for the first time in a long, long time, I felt like me again. Not a victim. Not a broken man. Just someone who saw the truth and refused to look away. The aftermath was quieter than I expected. No more knocks on the door. No more anonymous messages. No more late night pacing around the apartment, waiting for another blow. But silence didn't mean peace. It meant space. And space has a strange way of echoing. Every time I looked at my phone, I half expected a new threat, a new twist, a message from her, an apology, a trap, something. But there was nothing. Only time, stretching out like a road I hadn't walked before. One morning, I found myself in the park. The same park where I used to meet her, where we laughed under leaves and talked about the future. I sat on a bench with a coffee I didn't really want, watching strangers walk by, lives unfolding, spinning in directions I'd never know. Then a man sat beside me, maybe 50, slight limp, sharp eyes. He didn't speak right away. Eventually, he said, "You're the guy from a video." I tensed, not sure what to expect. But he chuckled. "Relax. I'm not here to bite. Just want to say, you got guts, kid." I offered a small nod. Didn't feel like guts. Felt like drowning. He looked out at the trees. "My ex-wife? Cheated on me for 2 years. I didn't do anything. Just let it eat me. Regret's a heavy thing." He paused and turned to me. "You burned the house down, metaphorically speaking. And sometimes that's the only way to build something new." His words stuck with me. Not because they were poetic, but because they were true. There are scars you carry in silence, and ones you choose to let speak for themselves. A few days later, Lena, my lawyer friend, texted me. "Lena, thought you should see this." Attached, a screenshot. It was a post on an online forum. A woman describing how she found out her fiancé was cheating. And the final push had been a video of a man exposing the truth in silence. Underneath, hundreds of comments. People sharing their stories. Some crying. Some angry. Some healing. My story had become more than mine. And that terrified me and humbled me at the same time. The apartment started to feel less like a place where everything fell apart and more like a blank canvas. I donated things we'd bought together, tossed out the little souvenirs of a false relationship, rearranged furniture, repainted a wall. Small things, but they mattered. Even the act of choosing a different coffee mug in the morning felt like a statement. This is my life again. Not hers. Not ours. Just mine. One evening, I was scrolling through emails and noticed one from a woman named Iris. Subject: You don't know me, but you saved me. The message was long. She had seen the video. She had cried. She had finally left a partner who had emotionally destroyed her for years. She said she wanted to write before the courage faded. I read it twice, maybe 3 times. Then I sat there, staring at the screen, until the words began to blur. I replied, I don't know if I saved you, but I'm glad you saved yourself. That's braver than anything I've done. She wrote back with a single line. Sometimes, just knowing you're not alone makes all the difference. That night, I slept with the window open. Let the wind in. Let the city in. Let something new in. I dreamed of standing in front of a mirror, not broken, not cracked. Time had a peculiar way of slipping by unnoticed. It finally looked like a few weeks had passed since the video, the confrontation, and the fallout. I kept my distance from the past, focused on the present, which, while quiet, was slowly becoming more peaceful. I even started to look forward to small, mundane things. The hum of my computer as I worked, the heat of the shower, the soft chime of a text message from a friend. It was simple, but it was enough. But as I walked into the grocery store that evening, something jolted me back to reality. I almost didn't recognize her at first. Standing by the produce aisle, the same dark hair, the same bright smile that had once been all for me. Her eyes darted up, and for a split second, our gazes locked. Her smile faltered. She was no longer the confident woman I remembered. Instead, she looked like someone who had been forced to confront the world without the carefully curated mask. I felt a knot in my stomach. Not the anger I expected, but something strange, something quieter. Her voice was thin, like a whisper of the past. Hey! Hey! I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. For a moment, neither of us spoke. She shifted nervously from foot to foot, her fingers fidgeting with the edge of the cart. I could see the slight tremble in her hands, the result of too much lying, too much running. I didn't expect to see you here, she said, a weak attempt at casualness. I nodded, unsure how to respond. The silence stretched between us, thick with all the things that hadn't been said. Then she spoke again, her voice breaking the stillness. I know this is unexpected, she began, her words tumbling out in a rushed, desperate tone. I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. Her apology hung in the air like smoke, dissipating before it could settle. It felt empty, like something she had rehearsed 1,000 times but never fully understood. Sorry, I asked, almost laughing. You think that's enough? After everything? She winced. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I'm not asking for it. I just wanted to say it. I could feel the weight of her guilt pressing against me, but I couldn't bring myself to feel pity. Not anymore. Why are you here? I asked, finally able to put the question into words. She hesitated, then took a deep breath. I lost everything. My job, my friends. Everything I built, it's falling apart. There was the thing I had been waiting for, the truth buried under the mask of manipulation. She had always been playing a game, thinking she could control everything and everyone. But now, the game had crumbled. She had nothing left to hide behind. And you think that's enough to fix this? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She looked down, her eyes heavy with regret. I don't know. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve to be forgiven. But I'm trying to figure out how to fix what I've broken. You're trying? I repeated, unable to suppress the bitterness that rose in my chest. You ruined everything, and now you're trying? She flinched, but I could see the desperation in her eyes. She wasn't playing anymore. She was vulnerable, stripped of the confidence she once wore like armor. I've made mistakes, she admitted quietly. The worst ones. And now I have to live with it. I paused, considering her words. For a moment, the anger that had been simmering inside me began to fade. But it wasn't forgiveness that I felt. It was something else. I don't know if you'll ever understand how much you've hurt me, I said softly. But what you did, it's not something you can just apologize for. It doesn't work that way. Her eyes filled with tears, and she quickly wiped them away. I never wanted to hurt you. I never did. Then why did you lie? I asked, the question slipping out before I could stop it. Why did you destroy everything? I thought I could get away with it, she said, her voice shaking. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. I stared at her, not knowing what else to say. There was nothing left to say. The damage had been done. As I turned to leave, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. It wasn't a sense of closure, not exactly, but it was something close to it. The finality of seeing her for what she was and knowing that I had moved past it. But as I stepped away, she called after me, her voice breaking the silence. "Wait," she said softly. I stopped, not sure what to expect. She stepped closer, her eyes filled with something I couldn't name. "I'm not the person you thought I was. But I swear, I never meant for it to go this far." I nodded, slowly. "I know, but that doesn't change what you did." With that, I turned and walked away, not looking back. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. The days after my brief encounter with her in the grocery store were a strange blur. I kept replaying our conversation in my mind, the words she said, the way she looked at me, like she would try to reach out but couldn't find the right words. It was hard to believe anything she said anymore. After all, I knew her better than I wanted to, but there was still something unsettling about it. The way she had looked at me, the vulnerability in her eyes. I couldn't help but wonder if, deep down, she regretted what she had done, or she was just another victim of her own manipulation, someone who thought she could control the game, but in the end had lost herself. It was hard to separate the person I had known from the person who stood before me, apologizing and trying to piece together her broken life. And even if she did regret what had happened, what could that possibly mean for me? Could I ever trust her again? I wasn't sure. The truth was, I wasn't sure I could trust anyone anymore. She had been the one person who I thought I could rely on, the one who promised she'd be there, no matter what. And when everything had fallen apart, it wasn't just a betrayal that cut deep. It was the fact that I had allowed myself to believe in someone like her. That night, I found myself sitting in the dimly lit corner of my apartment, staring at my phone. I had received another message from her earlier that day. I had read it and then ignored it, just like all the others. This one, however, seemed different. It wasn't full of regret or apologies. Instead, it was a simple, blunt statement. "I'm not the villain you think I am. You don't understand everything yet, but I promise you will." The message lingered in my mind like an itch I couldn't scratch. What did she mean by that? Was this some final attempt to manipulate me? Or was there something more behind it? Something I didn't know yet? I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to her story, more to what had happened between us than I had realized. But what could it be? The next day, I went back to the place where it all started, the park we had walked through on our first date. It felt strange, standing there now, knowing the lies she had told me, knowing everything that had been hidden beneath the surface. I sat on the same bench where we had shared our first laugh, the same place where I had felt like I had finally found someone who understood me. And now, all of that seemed like a distant memory, a cruel joke. I pulled out my phone and looked at the message again. "You don't understand everything yet." The words echoed in my mind. As I sat there, staring at the phone, something inside me clicked. I realized that there was a part of me that still wanted to believe in her, a part of me that was hoping, somehow, that everything wasn't as it seemed. But that part of me was fading, slowly being replaced by the cold, hard truth. I stood up and made my decision. It was time to stop wondering about the past, to stop searching for answers in messages and memories. The past couldn't be undone. No amount of wondering would change what had happened. But one thing was clear. Whatever she was planning, whatever game she thought she was still playing, I was done being part of it. I was done being the pawn. I had learned the hard way that trust wasn't something that could be given lightly, and the price of trust was far higher than I had ever imagined. The days had turned into weeks, and with each passing moment, I felt myself edging further from the person I once was. I was no longer the man who believed in second chances, in giving people the benefit of the doubt. I had learned, through the harshest lessons, that trust was a fragile thing, easily broken and impossible to rebuild once shattered. I had spent the last few weeks trying to move forward. I deleted her number, blocked her on social media, and started cleaning out the remnants of our time together from my apartment. The photos, the little gifts, the notes we had exchanged, they all went into a box, shoved into the back of my closet, a graveyard of a life I could never reclaim. But no matter how many things I threw away, no matter how much I tried to erase her from my life, there was always something lingering. The unanswered questions, the gnawing curiosity about what had really happened. Why? What was the real reason she had done it? There were still pieces of the puzzle missing, parts of the story I had never heard, and I knew, deep down, that if I didn't confront it once and for all, I would never truly be free. That night, after finishing a long day of work, I found myself staring at my phone again. Her message had come through a few hours ago, and for the first time, I didn't feel the same bitterness I had before. It was more like a feeling of indifference, like I had moved beyond it, but curiosity still hung in the air, thick and heavy. I know you're still angry, but there's more. I'm giving you the chance to know the truth. It's up to you now. I didn't hesitate. I called her. She picked up on the first ring, her voice cautious, as if unsure what to expect from me. "Hello?" she asked, her tone guarded. "I'm done with the guessing games," I said, my voice calm but firm. "I need to know the truth. All of it. No more lies, no more half-truths. Why did you do it? What were you really after?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, steady but nervous. "I didn't want this to go this way," she said quietly, almost to herself. "But I've been running from the truth for so long. I don't know how to explain it. Just start from the beginning," I said. "Tell me everything. No more hiding." "I wanted to have control," she began, her voice trembling. "I wanted to feel like I had power over something, over someone. It wasn't about love. It wasn't about you. It was about me, about what I could make you feel. It was about proving to myself that I could get away with it." I let her words hang in the air. The silence between us was deafening, but I let her continue. "I didn't expect to care about you," she admitted. "At first, it was all just part of the game. But then, things changed. I found myself attached to you in ways I didn't want, and that scared me. So I kept pushing, kept manipulating, kept lying, because if I stopped, I thought I would lose everything." The vulnerability in her voice was almost unrecognizable. This wasn't the confident woman I had once known. This was someone broken, someone who had built a life on lies and had lost themselves in the process. "I didn't know how to stop," she continued. "And by the time I realized what I had done, it was too late. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't undo the damage." I was silent for a moment, processing her words. Everything she said was raw, honest in a way I had never expected. But it didn't make the pain go away. It didn't change what had happened. "I want to make things right, but I know I can't," she said softly. "All I can do is tell you the truth now, and hope that somehow it brings you peace." I thought about it for a long time before I spoke again. "You've already taken everything from me," I said, my voice cold but steady. "But you can't take away my future. You can't control me anymore." There was a pause, and then she whispered, "I'm sorry. I never meant to destroy you." "I know," I replied, "but that doesn't matter anymore." I ended the call, setting the phone down slowly, as though the weight of it would take a moment to settle. In that moment, something inside me shifted. The final piece of the puzzle had fallen into place. I had all the answers I needed, and yet they didn't bring me the closure I thought they would. Instead, I realized that the only closure I would ever find was the one I gave myself, by letting go, by choosing to move forward without her. I walked to the window, staring out at the city lights below. It was a new chapter. The past was behind me, and I was ready to face whatever came next. Free from the shadows of the past, free from the lies, and free from the manipulation. I had learned the hardest lesson of all. The truth may set you free, but it is forgiveness of yourself that gives you peace.